Andeham Sri Guru Shri Padakam Sri Guru Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Sarvajagam Sahagam Shivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Devam Sri Radha Padam Sahagana Lalita Shivishakam Vitamscha Mantra Guru Jota Shikha Guru Ganta Charane Akikoria Bandhan Manchakal Patrubi Stakapashin Dubebacha Putitanam Pamanebo Vaishnavi Monamonama Oma Gyana Timiranda Sagyan and Janushalakaya Chuku Unamilitam Units Smai Sri Gurudeve Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudamani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunnavari Prashtat Desha Tarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Pramanitananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivashri Gaur Bhaktabinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. In his introduction to the Sri Isopanisad, Prabhupada paraphrases the title, the knowledge that brings one nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Sri Isopanisad was written by Prabhupada in 1968-69, and it was published early in the movement's development, and it has some unique features which we will discuss in the session this evening. This evening we're going to be giving a brief analysis and discussion on the introduction and the invocation of Isopanisad. So the introduction discusses about pramana. Pramana means the evidence upon which you establish the proof, a proof of something. You establish it as true. You establish it as factual with some proof. So in Sanskrit, the word for proof is praman. And in the introduction, Srila Prabhupada, he discusses three types of pramans, three types of evidences. If you search on internet for praman, you'll find that the different sampradayas have several different types of praman. Like you can find the South Indian Vaishnava sampradayas and the Advaitavad sampradayas. they have pramans, and these three that we'll discuss this evening are there, and also they have additional pramans. So if you'd like to further explore the topic, then that opportunity is there. Now, Prabhupada discusses first of all about Pratyaksha. Those of you who have studied Srimad Bhagavad-Gita will consider the 9th chapter, 2nd verse, Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam, that this realization of the self is something that's directly experienced. Pratyaksha means directly experienced, and particularly is based on the senses. Now, Rukmini, if you can, I think that we can have some discussion whilst we're presenting, and let me just let you see me for this. Either can people write and I can see their chatted questions or comments, or do they need to speak for us to interact? Could you do?
Either one's okay. Which would you prefer?
Well, if you speak with mic, then I can't use this special mic, so I can only speak into the laptop internal mic. So can I be heard under these circumstances?
Right now we can hear you.
Yeah. So is that good enough? Because then we can have a discussion and we can hear it. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
All right. So occasionally we'll have discussion. Now, I'm expecting many, as far as I understood, you mentioned that people they're already somewhat familiar with Isopanisad, and in fact for as long as even those experienced for 2 days of study. So they have had some experience of Isopanisad. I'm assuming our students have already looked at the content, correct?
Yes, our book club has students who have looked at the content.
Okay, so,
We do have a few guests who may not have.
So then, let's say this is an open question. Anyone can respond. Now, can someone give me an example of getting a proof, coming to the conclusion that something is factual based on evidence? Give me an example of it based on evidence that you get from your direct sense perception.
The Prabhupada gives the example of
Don't
the
give
sun.
me Prabhupada's example. Give me another, apart from Prabhupada's examples, please. Give me other examples, because we know that you've read it, but if you understand it, you'll be able to give another example. So that if you can give another example, that means you also know Prabhupada's example. But if you can give another example, that means you know more. So what's another example?
Oh, well, like once I was driving with some devotees, and there was a car in front of us, and there was a sign on the back, and myself and the person in the passenger seat both read it differently. And then as we got closer to the car, we actually realized what it said. So it's like from a distance, both of our senses had given us incorrect information. And then when we got closer, we could see what the correct information was.
Okay,
so relying on our senses.
Eventually, Rukmini, through Pratyaksha, you came to the truth.
Yes, but initially we had incorrect information.
Okay. That's good. That's a good example. Let's move on. This is called Anuman. Anuman means hypothetical. In other words, you theorize. Something was like that, so then therefore this is like this. Let's say, okay, so I'll ask you, someone can give an example. Perhaps someone who hasn't contributed yet this evening can give an example of coming to a factual, accepting something as truth based upon the system of Anuman.
Haribo.
Haribo.
So what about an example if we're in an island and we see smoke, so we could immediately conclude that there's a fire because wherever we see smoke, there's a fire.
Okay, good. That's good. So we accept the truth that there's a fire. We accept that truth, and we're pretty convinced of it. And we're convinced on the basis of it's the conclusion: where there's smoke, there's fire. Good. Okay, that's good. Let's take some more examples of this. Perhaps if you travel, well, no one's traveling now, but if you travel a lot, you'll have to use this a lot. Can you give examples? What time do what time do you arrive at the airport? It's like a truth. You have to arrive at the airport 3 hours before. Well, well, how do you know that? Because you know that there'll be so many people, there'll be so many lines, that takes so long. So therefore, you're accepting something as factual based on the supportive theory. Or when you're driving and you're driving down the road and you see a green light, you keep driving. Right? Because you're accepting as truth, as a fact, that there's no cars going to be coming the other direction. Of course, this is in most countries. In India, there's different. Those of you, I lived in India 25 years, so it doesn't always work like that. But you're okay that every day the train comes at 3:15, and so tomorrow I'll be at the station at 3:15 because it's the 3:15. That's what they call it. So that's a fact. It comes at 3:15. You know, so this is the method of Hanuman. I mean, it's not that these things are extraordinary. These are not extraordinary. In fact, we can't exist in life without utilizing these things every day.
Prabhu, what about in terms of hypotheses and speculation where theories are proposed and assumed to be true and then later proven to be incorrect?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I studied sciences, and I remember one of the theories we were taught in my first year of university, and then as a master's student, I was explaining the same principle to another first-year student, and then a PhD student is like, "Oh, no, we disproved that one. We don't teach that anymore." So, like, halfway through my explanation, I kind of had my foot in my mouth because I'd been explaining an incorrect, outdated theory, which I assumed to be fact.
That's very interesting, Rukmini. So
this is
based
Karuna
on
Shakti,
that,
by the way, Prabhu.
pardon?
This is Karuna.
Yeah, well, you see, then there's another example that I was assuming, you know, based on the hypothesis that, you know, you were Rukmini, because I saw Rukmini and then I'd heard about Karuna Shakti, but I never knew that, you know, so I didn't know that I was actually interacting with you. So this is another example. So Karuna Shakti, Devi Dasi, what general principle about the method of Hanuman could you suggest based on that experience?
Well, that it's fallible.
It's fallible.
First of all,
yeah, fallible.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, very good. Yeah, it's fallible. However, we still use it. You know, it's not that. You know, it's not that in this kind of, you know, discussion that like these things are Maya and these things are bad, and you know, then we're not going to. These things are. We use them all the time. We use them all the time. It's just we use them so much that we don't really consider it as being anything extraordinary. You know, when we hear our senses is giving us information which we're making decisions upon, and we're making, you know, I should leave at this time, I'll see him there. Everything, we're using this all the time to make decisions about our reality and about our conception of facts, etc. But as Karuna Shakti has shared with us, there are some shortcomings with this method, because it may not be right. Like, for example, the 3:15 comes every day at 3:15, but you know, tomorrow it may not come at 3:15. So it's not guaranteed. It has its limits. Now, what about the sense perception? Although we're using that all the time to make decisions and based on what we consider reality and truth, what are some of the shortcomings of the Pratyaksha method? What are some of the shortcomings of the Pratyaksha method?
One of the shortcomings is that we rely on the senses, which are limited.
Limited, yeah. What else? Yeah, some things are just beyond the senses. Some things are just beyond the senses. So the senses can make mistakes, and okay, now
actually, even in the sense of Pratyaksha, you know, we talk about quantitative and qualitative measures of measuring things, but there are some things which are completely beyond even qualitative measurements.
Oh, sorry, can't hear you.
So,
Can
like,
you
I mean,
just kindly Runa Shakti, can you just kindly repeat that, because I can't hear unless. Yeah. Now you can speak.
Well, what I was saying is, even traditionally we look at quantitative and qualitative ways of measuring things, but there are certain things that are even beyond qualitative measurements.
Yeah. It's qualitative and quantitative. It's still with the senses, so you can measure the quality of something and how much there is qualitative and quantitative, but it's still the same senses. So it doesn't, particular, the shortcoming of their limits is still inherent there under all circumstances. Let's move on to another method of getting truth. It's called Shabda. Shabda means sound. Shabda means Shabda Praman. Shabda Praman. Shabda means sound. So they're hearing from authority. Now, what are some of the advantages? Of Shabda Praman? Using that method, what are some advantages that you can experience using the method of hearing from an authority? Well, of course, by the way, that we're assuming, there's an assumption that the authority is qualified. So not that we're talking, if something else, then it's not going to work. The authority has to be actually a bona fide a qualified authority, and then the method of hearing from such authority. That's what the Shabda method is. And if it's not a bona fide authority, then it's not really to be considered a Shabda Praman. It's kind of just a mistaken thing. But if it's Shabda Praman, then the authority is the source that we're hearing from is authorized, guaranteed. So what are some of the advantages of Shabda Praman method of getting?
Hey, this is Rukmini. Hi, Krishna. It saves a lot of time and a lot of effort from having to analyze everything for yourself to confirm authenticity.
Saves a lot of time. Yeah. What are some other advantages of Shabda Praman method of getting truth?
Because the information is coming from a pure source, we know the information is pure.
Yeah, so that's very good. So therefore, we can the level of trust may actually be we can take it much deeper level, and that's good. That's actually a good thing. That we could say that these first two methods, Pratyaksha and Anuman, these first two methods, they're materialistic. They're materialistic and they're atheistic. They're kind of based on the conception that beyond immediate matter and subtle matter, there's no spiritual existence or spiritual reality, and therefore truth is something that you have to feel, you have to experience, or you can conclude. Basically, these two methods are Pratyaksha and Anuman combined are what we call material science. Material sciences are basically these methods. And as Rukmini said, they take a long time. They keep a long time, and they're not always correct. As we see, the theories change, and we're never really coming to the conclusion. So the advantage of Shabda is that, well, you find out what the truth is, and then immediately you can begin living your life according to that, rather than just being a speculator your whole life and thinking, well, at least I was searching. Well, better that you just find out what the process is and you begin applying it, and then you can make much more progress. So that's an advantage. And also, these two first methods, Pratyaksha and Anuman, they're attractive to atheistic and the proud people. Because I did it my way, and we worked it out, and I discovered that. And the method of Shabda Praman actually it induces a quality of humility, and it's appealing to a humble person. And humility is a quality that is actually attractive to Sri Hari. Sri Hari is attracted to the quality of humility. It's a quality influenced by Shatta Gun. So therefore, this method can make you a more humble person. And that's good if you want to have consciousness development in your life. Here's a little cartoon which once again shows us the shortcomings of the Hanuman and the Pratyaksha. That and people have a great conviction. You know, he's thinking it's a wall. There's 7 blind men trying to work out what is an elephant. Someone thinks it's like a sword. Someone thinks it's like an arrow. Someone thinks it's like a big snake. Someone thinks it's like a wall. Someone thinks like a tree or like a rope. So, you know, they'll never really come to the proper conclusion. And what's the value of that? But someone just tells you it's an elephant. So you can move on. So therefore, Tad Vijnanartam, Prabhupada quotes this verse. It's from Mukundaka Upanishad. This is from Mukundaka Upanishad, this verse. And it means that Tad Vijnanartam, for the purpose of getting that, the Vijnan means realization, and artha means the purpose of, with a purpose. So those who have a purpose, tad vijnanartam, for the purpose of achieving that realization, sa gurum eva abhigachet, one has to approach a guru. And then the qualifications of guru are mentioned in this Upanishad. That samit pani shrotriyam brahmanishtam. Shamit pani means carrying wood, as for fire sacrifice, and srotriyam means that they're properly heard. These are the words that are particularly important for us. Srotriyam means that the bona fide guru he's coming in a line of bona fide gurus, and he's carrying on that school's teachings. That's called srotriyam or parampara sampradaya. And then brahmanishtam means that nishta means fixed, in Brahma means spiritual, on spiritual platform. So the person that has properly heard the teachings in the authorized school, sampradaya, and is nishta, is fixed in following those teachings and has attained the spiritual platform, then the person is qualified to be a guru. And it's required to approach such a person, because otherwise, you know, we're going to have to deal with the problems of Pratyaksha and Hanuman methods, which we discussed. Therefore, the Vedic injunction is that one must approach. The word compulsory is used. Bona fide spiritual master, a guru. Prabhupada's praising that verse, paraphrasing that verse. And what is the qualification of the spiritual master? He is one who has rightly heard the Vedic message from the right source, that's Srotriyam, and he must practically be firmly established in Brahman. These are the 2 qualities that he must have. So in the process of Krishna consciousness, accepting a guru is a fundamental requirement. There are different types of gurus. The first guru one accepts will be a Shikha Guru, a Shikha Guru. A Shikha Guru is a person that gives you instructions. And when we're studying these books of Srila Prabhupada, we're also accepting Srila Prabhupada as a Shikha Guru. And for that reason, he wrote the books. Otherwise, he would have just spoken to his disciples and empowered them to subsequently make disciples. And in that way, knowledge is passed on. But in addition, Prabhupada did empower disciples. And in addition to that, he wrote books that will be available for generations to come so that he can be directly accessed. He mentioned on several occasions that access to me is more direct through my writings than even through association with me. The Vapu Sangha, the Vani Sangha is more powerful. Prabhupada many times confirmed that. So we can accept Prabhupada as a Shikha Guru by reading his books in the book club, and to whatever extent we can apply these teachings in our life, then we can be considered a Sishya, a disciple, and we're following, you know, aspects of the teachings of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And according to our inclination, you know, we can deepen that practice accordingly, and all of the inspiration will be available. And in addition to Prabhupada as a Shikha Guru, one can also have other Shikha Gurus who are herein mentioned. The qualifications that you need to look for in a Shikha Guru is firstly that they've heard the Vedic message from the right source. In other words, they have a guru they have a guru, and they've also been certified by that guru. They've been certified as a bona fide representative of the school from that guru. They have certification from the guru, and they're applying the guru's teachings to a very significant level in their lives. That person is qualified to give you instruction. So there's another type of Shikha Guru that you can accept, and also you can accept a mantra guru. A mantra guru is a guru that can give you a private mantra. A Vaishnav in ISKCON, in our movement, we're all chanting the same private mantras, but they're given to you privately, and those mantras are not uttered loudly. They're special bij and mul mantras worshipping the various Ishta Devata, the worshipable deities in our movement. And so to get that mantra, which can also further deepen your Krishna consciousness, you require to accept Diksha. And at that time also you're given a name. So these are all the different ways that you can accept Guru, and these are all recommended for you to get to the truth of Atma Tattva, Bhagavad Tattva, the truth of reality and the truth of God. Are there any questions on this point of accepting Guru as is established in this section of the introduction?
I have a question. When you say the guru needs to be firmly established in Brahman, can you elaborate on what that means?
Well, specifically, in the Bhagavad-Gita, 5th chapter, Krishna says, Vashaktatma, that Vashaktatma, one is detached from Bhayashpasha. Bhayashpasha means the pleasures of the senses. Pleasures of the senses. And a guru is able to control the senses and has the term Goshami. Goshami means controller, master. Swami means master, and Go is the senses. So Goshami. So in Upadeshamrit, in the Bhakti Shastri studies, you'll find Upadeshamrit, and there it's mentioned that Etan Veganyo Vishaheta Dheda Sarvamapinam Pritivim Shashisham, that the person who can Priti Bi Shashisha, accept disciples all over the world, Priti Bi Shashisha, Etan Vegan Yo Vishaheta, he can tolerate the urges of these pushings. Etan Vegan, these pushings, Vishaheta, he can tolerate them and remain dhira. So you can recognize if a person's on the Brahman platform. It's not that, it's kind of something that's subjective. They will be able to control these things. That bacha means bacha bag, manasa bag, jiva bag, udara pashta bag, etan bagan, yo vishaheta dhira. Those who can control these urges and remain sober, sharvam apimam priti vishashisha. They can accept disciples all over the world. And what are those urges? That bacha bag means the urge to speak. Bacha bag, the urge to speak. Jiva bacha bag, manasa bag means the mind, the wanderings of the mind. If you can control the mind, and not that you're forced to do things or go do that because the mind just doesn't give up, and you just have to give in to the demands of the mind. But you're able to control the mind, you're able to control the speech. Bacha bag, manasa bag, jiva bag. Jiva means you're able to control the tongue. The tongue will demand so many things, but one will restrain the unrestricted use of the tongue, and only utilize the tongue to honor Bhagavat Prasad. And in that way, Jiva Veg, you control the urges. Udara Upashta Veg. Udara Veg means the belly, hunger. So you regulate eating, and on some occasions you fast also. There's the fasting days like Ekadashi and Madhav Titi, the appearance days of Sri Hari. And Upashtabeg. Upashtabeg is the genitals. The genitals can only be used for the purpose of procreating a God-conscious child, and they're not used for they're not used for recreation. Genital stimulation not used for recreation, only used for procreation of God-conscious children. Now, if you can do those things, then you're considered to be established in Brahman.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Anything else on Guru? and how it fits in here, because we kind of need to get somebody to speak to us. And Nick, in this case, the subject Brahman, both we're accepting the Shastra, the books, and Prabhupada's writing. So that he's a guru, we're accepting his words, and we're also accepting the various Shikha gurus, and pretty much we accept that as and we apply it. So this is the method of Krishna consciousness. Accepting guru is fundamental, and this is the reason why, because the reality that's being taught is not achievable through the senses or even through speculation.
Rukmini, you can go.
Karun and I always talk at the same time. Atul, Krishna Prabhu, I have a question. We know that the knowledge that a guru gives is in line with the Shastra, and therefore it's part of the Shabda. But a guru also gives a specific advice on an individual's life and different instructions to different people. Can we quantify how this is also Shabda? Or maybe not quantify, but explain.
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, the answer probably we can say that now originally in the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma, he heard from Govinda, and Brahma Hridaya Adi Kabaya, he was given spiritual knowledge revealed in his heart. It's Govinda and Lord Brahma, through the heart, Gayatri. And then Lord Brahma, he instructed Narad Muni in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it's described. That's 3-4 chapters of Narad's conversation with Lord Brahma. And then it describes Narad Muni instructing Vyas, Mahamuni Vyas, who compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. So each time they're saying something is different. It's not that, it's like, it's all a whole different thing. It was 4 slokas originally. Then Brahma to Narad was different. And then Narad Muni to Vyas is whole different. And then Vyas, the Bhagavatam. So it's the details will vary according to the requirement of the hearer. But the principles are the same, because the person is the bona fide guru, Jai Krishna Tattva Veta, Shai Guru Hoy, Jai Krishna Tattva Veta, because the science stays the same and the Shastra stays the same. Jai Krishna Tattva Veta, those who know the Shastric conclusions and the Shastric information, that stays the same. But the discussions, its application, its significance, its meaning, that will change according to the realization of the teacher. And Bhagavatam confirms in the second verse of Bhagavatam the importance of the lips of the teacher. That Pivatam Bhagavatam was it Sukhamukha Dravyita Anya Shamyuta. That Sukhamukha, that because it was touched by the lips of Sukdev Goswami, the parrot, it's even become sweeter. So the Shastra is the same, but the application and the discussion and the discussions around the Shastra, that differs, that will constantly be changing, and that's all similarly going to be inspirational, because it's all related to that person's, that guru's vision of the reality, the gyan that he has realized. He's a gyani, he's a gyanavan. Just like Prabhupada speaking, he's a realized soul. Whatever he says is purifying to us. Your Prabhupada's lecture, your Prabhupada's writings, it doesn't really matter. You just connect to it, and because he's a realized soul. So what he's saying is he's describing the reality that he sees, which is completely different to ours, which is an illusory reality. So therefore, the Shastra and the words, another place the Bhagavatam says that Jnane prayasha mudapashanamanta eva jivanti shat mukaritam bhavadiyavartum. Jivanti sat, when the mukaritam, from the lips of a person, from the lips, jivanti sat mukaritam, from the lips of a person who has jivanti sat, who has made their life spiritual. When you hear from that person, bhavadiyavartum, about Krishna, ye prayasha ajitajito abhiyashitashtirudo, you can conquer the Supreme. And there's no other way of conquering him. So this is it varies according to the realization of that qualified guru, and that's the flavor of spiritual life. Let's move on. You were discussing the 4 defects in the introduction. And therefore, once again, this induces us to have to accept the authority of the Shabda Brahman. This is the Sanskrit words for those different mistakes. You can find that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita if you wanted to find out why is it 4 and how come those specific 4 things are mentioned, because that's mentioned in the writings of Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we commit mistakes a lot. Like that square, it looks it doesn't look straight. The lines don't look straight, but actually they are. And those lines, those lines running across the page, they don't look like they're parallel, but actually they are. And that doesn't look like it's moving. But I mean, it looks like it's moving, but it's not. So here's some famous people who made mistakes that you may not have known about.
That was really freaky.
This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us. That was Western Union in 1876. Heavier than air, flying machines, impossible. Lord Kelvin, President of the Royal Society, 1895. Who the hell wants to hear actors talk? They used to be they didn't have sound in the early movies, Charlie Chaplin movies. They didn't have sound. That came later. Guitar music is on the way out anyway. We don't like the sound. That was Decca Record rejecting the Beatles in 1962. Whew. Digital Equipment Corps. There's no reason that anyone would want a computer in their home in 1977. 640 gigabyte ought to be enough for anybody. Bill Gates in 1981. So, we make mistakes all the time. Prabhupada's concluding, with all these deficiencies, we cannot give perfect knowledge to anyone, nor are we ourselves perfect. Therefore, we accept the Vedas as they are. Now, we've been studying the Isopanisad. The Isopanisad is part of the Upanishads. In the Bhagavad-Gita, 2nd chapter, text 45, Prabhupada writes that when the activities for sense gratification, namely the Karma Kanda chapter, are finished, then the chance for spiritual realization is offered in the form of the Upanishads. The Upanishads mark the beginning of transcendental life. Now, here, Srila Prabhupada is talking, when he talks about the Karma Kanda, he's talking about the Vedas. Triguna Vishaya Veda. The Vedas are dealing mainly with the subject of the modes of material nature and how to be happy in this world, how to raise yourself to the heavenly planets, how to enjoy the extended duration of life there and the pleasures available. And this is Vedic, and the Vedic rituals teach this. And after one has come to the conclusion of that, then the Upanishads discuss the transcendent life. In other words, beyond even the heavenly planets, the liberation into the eternal Sanatan realm are discussed in the Upanishads. And the Upanishads are also part of the Vedas, but they are a portion of the Vedas which deal specifically with the transcendental achievement, as distinct from the material achievements in this world, which the Vedas are predominantly dealing with. And the meaning of the word Upanishad means that bringing one nearer to the master for gaining spiritual knowledge. There are 11. So the idea being here that coming closer means that one can get the more confidential teachings, or the more advanced teachings, which are beyond the temporary achievements. And therefore, this is the concept of Upanishads. There's 11 very famous Upanishads, and famous in the sense that they are referred to and discussed and published and translated by both the Vaishnav schools and by the Advaitavad schools, the impersonal schools. Also, these are the main, the Upanishads actually will constitute the main praman, the main evidence for the impersonalist Smarta Brahmins and Sankarite Sampradaya, where you find the mats, the Sankara mats in the various places in Puri and in South India and in Dwarka, the Sankara mats, and the scholars there, and the Upanishads are what they study. And our Vaishnava acharyas also, Srila Prabhupada, he's translating Isopanisad as Isha, number one is Isopanisad, as did Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Baladev Vidyabhushan, other Vaishnava acharyas. They did commentaries on the Isha Upanishad. If you take a look here at the Vedic literature, it's very broad. There's this diagram here of the Vedic literature. It's a very broad subject. And you can see there's two main categories, Sruti and Smriti. And if you see over here, the two main categories, Sruti, Smriti, and then the Sruti you see down here, Upanishads is one section of all these other Vedic literatures, but we're only studying the Upanishads and one Upanishad. And then all of the Smritis, we have Puranas, Itihas, Darshan, Pancharatna. These books are, we're using Vaishnava worship, we're using that, and we're using Puranas, and we're using the Itihas, and we're using the Vedanta. These are, in general, where our texts are coming from. So Prabhupada is explaining, Prabhupada comments that, well, if you notice that the two main categories, the two main categories, the Sruti and the Smriti, can be seen in this way. The Sruti is the material that has no beginning, like the Vedic mantras. There's no beginning and there's no time of compilation. And the Smriti is the works of Vyasadeva and other acharyas who've written down the Puranas and the Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutra, the Itihas. These are all compiled histories that were written at a certain time, and their history of their compilation also is recorded. So that's the distinction between Shruti and Smriti. Now, in our Krishna consciousness movement, you'll see that fundamentally our material, our evidence is from the category of the Smriti, Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and then the other books that we have, like the Nectar of Devotion. And these books, they're not part of the Vedic library. These are called Goswami Grantha, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Nectar of Devotion, Upadeshamrit. These books are written by the Bengali acharyas of the medieval religious Renaissance, and the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, and Rupa Goswami and Kaviraj Goswami. They were 500 years ago, these books, and these are specifically for the Gaudiya Sampradaya, and so they're not so much discussed in the Vedic library. These are Bengali poetry that are particularly important in our Krishna consciousness movement. But our main evidence is the Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and in addition to that, we have one book from the Shruti, and that's Sri Upanishad. Now, Srila Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that about Prashtantrai. The Vedanta Sutra is known as Nyaya Prastan. The Upanishads is known as Shruti Prastan, and the Gita, Mahabharata, and Purana are known as Smriti Prastan. Okay, so the Shruti Prastan, we explained, the Shruti is the Vedas and the eternal sound, and the Smriti is the Gita, the Puranas, the Bhagavatam, the Ramayana, etc. And most of our books are in the Smriti category. Bhagavad-Gita is in Smriti category, and the Bhagavatam is in Smriti category. And the Prabhupada continues that the Mayavadi philosophers accept only the Nyaya Prasthana and the Shruti Prasthana, rejecting the Smriti Prasthana. So therefore, because most of our Praman, most of our literature is in the Smriti Prasthana category. So therefore, having the Isopanisad, which also is which is in the Shruti Praman category, then that gives us the means whereby we can have the dialogue with the Mayavadi and those who are not accepting the Smriti Prasthana. We can have evidence from the Isopanisad to support Krishna consciousness, and that's why it's important, as Prabhupada mentions here in 1968 in a lecture. Whenever there is argument on some point, one has to give reference from these Upanishads. If one can give evidence from the Upanishads, then his argument is very strong. You'll also find very strong because it's accepted by all classes of philosophers of Veda. You'll find that in Bhagavad-Gita, Prabhupada, perhaps you haven't noticed before, but you'll find Prabhupada regularly quoting from the Upanishads in the purports to Bhagavad-Gita as it is, in order to make his arguments very strong. And Prabhupada comments that in the introduction, this Krishna consciousness movement is completely authorized from the Vedic principles. So this is like a theme that we see running through Prabhupada's Sri Isopanishad, that Srila Prabhupada is establishing Krishna consciousness on the basis of the verses of Isopanishad. And therefore, making the statement, the conclusion is that the Krishna consciousness movement is completely authorized from Vedic principles. And the essay that deals with this principle is the Sri Isopanishad. Prabhupada explains so many Vedic principles, and he explains Krishna consciousness in terms of these principles of the verses of Isopanishad. Are there any questions on that, the overview of the introduction?
Yes, Atul Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much, because that was one of the questions that came back. It came up during our sessions as to see how the Isopanishad fits into the Vedic literature and all our other texts. So that was very, very useful. Is it possible for us to get a copy of that slide that would show the Vedic literature, the Smriti and the Shruti, and how it broke down?
Sure, we'll send that to you.
And my question is that sometimes the Bhagavad-Gita is referred to as the Gita Upanishad. So how do we see the Bhagavad-Gita as part of the Smriti?
Well, because Bhagavad-Gita was part of the Mahabharata. Bhagavad-Gita is just before Krishna's on the battlefield, Arjuna, and just before the battle. Let me just send this to you, and then you can send it out to the students. Oh, we'll do it at the end. I don't need it now. We'll do it at the end. So the Bhagavad-Gita is actually, it happened whilst Krishna was speaking, just before the battlefield, just before the battle of Kurukshetra, which is described in the Mahabharata. So actually Bhagavad-Gita is a part of the Mahabharata, and in that way it's a Smriti. The author is Vyas Muni, who wrote the Mahabharata. And it's also called Gita Upanishad because Gita Sugita Kartavya Kim Anya Shastra Bishtadai Yashwayam Padmanabhasham Mukapadma Vinishritaha. In the Gita Mahatmya, it describes that Mukapadma Vinishritaha, because it's come from the lips of Padmanabha, the Sri Hari, from whose navel the lotus flower sprouts. Because the Gita has emanated from his lips, then it is non-different from him. Gita Sugita. Kartavya Kimyana Shashtabishta, you don't need to read any of the book. So it's considered everything is there in Bhagavad Gita, the absolute teachings of Sri Hari. He personally comes. Gita Upadesh. Gita Upadesh is the Lord speaking to all humanity, and Gita Upanishad, because all of the principles of the Upanishad you'll find in Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad-Gita is also, you will find that the Advaitavadis and the impersonalists and the Mayavadis, they also have discussion on Bhagavad-Gita. So the Bhagavad-Gita is considered like an Upanishad. But technically speaking, it's a Smriti. Any other questions on the Sruti and the Smriti? And the fact that Isopanisad is part of the Sruti. Okay, so we'll carry on. 2 minutes on. Fanning to Borakon, fanning to Beshik. We'll carry on to the invocation verse. We'll discuss some of the key concepts in this verse. Ampurnamadaha punamidam punamudachate punashapunam adaya punamevavashishate. The first 3 lines.
Atul Krishna Prabhu, sorry to interrupt. There was a couple of questions that came up regarding in the introduction. Could we interject those now before we go to the invocation?
Yeah, sure. Let me go back to that review slide then.
Okay, yeah. So one of the lines in the introduction said that all knowledge is Vedic knowledge. So how do we understand that? Like the point that has come up is like, if I'm trying to learn how to operate Zoom, is that Vedic knowledge?
Yeah. Veda means knowing. Veda, vid. Veda, vidya, learning. Veda, knowledge. So it's a very broad, in that sense, it's a very broad take on the word Vedas. Other questions?
I'm just checking. There was one more. Radha, do you remember the second question that came up regarding the introduction? I don't have it in front of me right now.
I can check for you. Hold on. The second question was, why is our real identity Varnashram?
Why is it what? Oh, Prabhupada says Varnashram.
Yeah, Prabhupada says we're not Hindu, and I was expecting we're Vaishnav, but Prabhupada goes, we're part of Varna Ashram, and he gives it as our identity.
It's a good question. It's a good question. Now, all we can say in this regard is that when you listen to Prabhupada's teachings, Prabhupada's writings, Prabhupada, he is addressing different, you could say, different audiences at different times, and sometimes there's no prelude to it. Sometimes he'll be speaking to sadhakas, those practicing Krishna consciousness. Sometimes he'll be speaking to all of humanity. And you kind of just have to, Prabhupada, he doesn't give a prelude that, you have to kind of like, be in tune a little bit. Like, for example, in the Bhagavad-Gita, Jukta Hara, Prabhupada said, Jukta Cheshta Shikamisha, Jukta Sapnava Bodhasha, Joga Bhavadi Dukhaha. One has to be regulated in eating, sleeping, work, and recreation. And one who is regulated, that they can mitigate all misery and be established in Yoga bhavati dukkha. Yoga bhavati being established in yoga, dukkha, and remove all misery from your life. So that's for all humanity. That's for all civilized humanity. These principles are there, and Prabhupada preaches like the guru of all humanity on occasion. And other times he'll say things about the Krishna consciousness movement or those practicing chanting Hare Krishna. So in one way we can be considered varnashramites because we're following, we accept that we're following an ashram and we're following a varna in terms of the function of educating. So perhaps Prabhupada mentions that because varnashram dharma is a Vedic concept, of Vedic culture, and because Prabhupada is talking about the teachings of the Vedas as the topic of the address, this introduction is actually in a public address. It's not an essay; it's a public lecture, and so therefore he's referring to it in a Vedic term. But we are Varnashramites. We're not Hindus. Hindu's not a Vedic term. So that would probably be, where we're reading between the lines, because we're not Hindus. You could say that Prabhupada is saying actually our actual designation is Varnashram follower. There's a statement that went before that Prabhupada didn't mention. That is, we are not called Hindus. He's in Conway Hall, England, London. So, but without saying it, but it's like it's implied that we are not Hindus. We are Varnashram, and because you won't find the word Hindu in the Vedic terminology. So that would be my comment on that.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Shall we carry on for Isopanisad invocation?
Sorry, Prabhu, I wanted to ask a question because you mentioned that the Prabhupada is one of our Shiksha Gurus and then we have Diksha Gurus. What is the relationship between Prabhupada and the present Gurus?
Prabhupada and the present Gurus.
How do we keep how do we balance the two?
Let me show you a slide that I didn't show in the presentation, but I do have the slides. So now you brought up the question, I'll show it and then answers that question, because it is related. So here it comes, just as to reciprocate with your appetite. We've got some more information. You can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So there it is. So you're asking about what's the relationship between Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru and Srila Prabhupada. So this is a statement by the ISKCON Governing Body Commission regarding that relationship. And it says the Shiksha Guru gives spiritual instruction and inspiration on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. And so as we mentioned, you have Prabhupada as a Shiksha Guru and then you have other Shiksha Gurus. So their authority is that they're presenting Srila Prabhupada's teachings. In our movement, into what authorizes them or why we would consider them a Guru is because why we consider them a Guru is because that person properly represents, that person properly represents Srila Prabhupada's teachings. The Diksha Guru gives spiritual instruction because Diksha Gurus are also Shiksha Guru. But why they're called Diksha Gurus? Because they give Diksha mantra. But actually, their main function is as a Shiksha Guru. It's not that they just go around and give mantras. So, but they're called a Diksha Guru because in addition to giving Shiksha, they can also give Diksha mantra. So the Diksha Guru gives spiritual instruction, gives inspiration, gives formal initiation, and a spiritual name, and later imparts the sacred Gayatri mantra to a qualified disciple as a service to Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Parampara. So Srila Prabhupada he's not just another guru. He's especially authorized, and to be a guru in ISKCON, one has to accept Prabhupada as you have to accept Prabhupada as your guru, as your principal teacher, to be authorized to be a guru in ISKCON. So that's the unique role of Srila Prabhupada, that he's everyone's guru and he's our ultimate spiritual authority. And therefore, in these types of discussions amongst members and associates of our movement, the authority that we, the general discussion we have of the teachings of Prabhupada and the authority that we establish our teachings upon are the teachings of Srila Prabhupada. And that's a principle of our movement, which is of utmost importance.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu.
Is that okay?
Yes, so one must have a relationship, even just as ordinary devotees. We need to have a relationship with Prabhupada, foundational to the relationships with other devotees and other gurus.
Yes, yes. That will be the first relationship. I mean, the first relationship you'll have, the first guru will be Prabhupada. Then there's an informal Shiksha guru who's also introducing Prabhupada to you. But in terms of a person who's really giving you direction in life, everyone that comes to our movement and starts reading the books, that Prabhupada will start to function in that way. And, he will remain as the principal guide, and he will have representatives that, you have to be sufficiently mature to be able to recognize and take advantage of as you progress in spiritual life.
Okay. Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Let's go to the invocation. Now the invocation actually is not considered, it's not actually part of the Isopanisad. It's a mantra from the Vedas, and where you find the Isopanisad, I think the Yajur Veda, where the Isopanisad verses are there, you'll find them. So the preceding verse is this invocation verse, and both Thakur Bhaktivinoda and Srila Prabhupada included this verse from the Vedas as the invocative verse of their Sri Isopanisad publications. So let's look at the first few lines. Om Punam Adaha. That Om is the Bij mantra of the Supreme Lord, the Bij mantra Om. And it's in many Vedic mantras. In Bij form, in succinct sound form, Omkar, it refers to the Supreme Lord in sound vibration. Punam means complete. So, and Adaha means that. So that complete, that perfect Om, that supreme, that complete, perfect reality is complete. Prabhupada translates that the complete whole is perfectly complete. And the implication of this statement from the Vedic mantra is that therefore the perfect, complete whole must have personality. Because if it lacked personality, then it would be not complete. It would be incomplete. And even we, as sentient beings, would be able to experience things that the Supreme couldn't experience. We can smell, we can taste, we can have emotion, we can have love. So if we can have these things, how can they not be in the Supreme? Otherwise, we would be more experienced. We would be more, no more. So it's not possible. He must have experienced everything that we have and more. It must have senses. It must be able to taste, smell, must have form, must have beauty. So this is on the basis of the Vedic mantras establishing the Vaishnava Siddhanta. Prabhupada's commenting in his invocation. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any other way, he couldn't be complete. The complete whole must contain everything both within and beyond our experience, otherwise he cannot be complete. That's a very powerful statement. And Punamidam, that this Adaha means that, and Idam means this. This material creation is also complete. It's also complete because it's part of the complete perfects program. Prabhupada's commenting in a Bhagavatam lecture, Purnamidam. Although the ocean's water is so much, when there is scarcity of water, you have to take help from Krishna. He'll evaporate the water from the ocean, the sun evaporates water, stores it in clouds, carries it to the various places, mountain tops. When it falls down, it becomes sweet, otherwise you cannot. So everything is complete. So many examples in nature where you find that everything is arranged perfectly so that we can live in harmony with nature and revive our God consciousness. And Prabhupada explains that the human form of life, in other words, when you achieve the human form of life, then that's meant for practicing God consciousness. It's not just meant for utilizing like like the animal species, which we've already been through. So the human life is meant for practicing God consciousness and then getting oneself out of the cycle of birth and death and returning to the transcendent reality. So this world, this creation, this Purnam Idam, this material creation actually is perfect in that way. You can use it to go back to the transcendental reality. And then, okay, shall we take a few questions on that? Are there any questions on that? Om Purnamadaha and how the Purnamidam. It's Om Purnamadaha and Purnamidam. If there's anything.
Prabhu, in the introduction, we mentioned that we said the spiritual master is one who is perfectly situated in Brahman. But in the purport at the beginning, where Prabhupada is explaining that the Supreme is a personality, he mentions that the impersonal Brahman is the lowest of the realization. So, what is the difference in the application of Brahman in these two contexts?
Yeah.
Because it seems that there's different understanding of the same word.
Yeah, so Brahman, the Guru has to be Brahman realized. We say Brahman realized. I mean, Brahman realized means that they've realized they're not the body. They've realized they're liberated. Brahman, and on the Brahman platform, the liberated platform. The liberated Vaishnava is on the Brahman platform, but he's not an impersonalist. He's not an impersonalist, not an impersonal Brahman, but he's on the Brahman platform. He's not on the material platform. He's on the Brahman platform. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Are there anything else on Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam? Let's move on to Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. So Purnasya, Purnam, Adaya. When you take away, Purnam means the complete, Adaya, you take it away from Purnasya. From the complete, when you take the complete away, Purnam eva vishishyate, the complete remains. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam eva vishishyate. Prabhupada's explaining the significance of this statement. In the spiritual, one is Purna, and if you take the whole, one is still one. That they cannot understand. The poor brain, they think that materially, if one complete and if one is taken away, then it becomes zero. What kind of God is zero? So the idea is that they think that he can't be a person. They can't if he's everything. Now they got the idea God is everything, therefore he can't be a person with relationships. But he can be a person and he can expand as everything, and the expansion doesn't affect him at all. Also, udasina vadasana masaktam teshu karmashu. I create and I expand all this, but it doesn't affect me in any way. Krishna's playing there in the spiritual world. He never gets disturbed by any managerial issues. It's completely expands as a complete creation, and he's not exhausted by that in any way. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. If you take the complete, if you take the complete, the complete remains. Krishna is so full that even Krishna expands in 1,000,000 times. He's still the same thing, Krishna. It's just like here, something being offered to Krishna. He will eat it, but he will leave everything for you. Prashadam, how is that? Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. He takes it and he leaves it all behind. This is God's power. He'll eat everything and he will keep everything for you as prashadam. So that's Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vishishyate. Any question or comment on that?
I have a question.
Hmm.
So you mentioned that this verse precedes many other verses as an invocation. So I was wondering if you'd be able to elaborate what an invocation is and why is it significant to know before we go forward in studying the Sri Isopanisad.
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not. My understanding of it was that because that mantra is preceding. You see that we mentioned that the Vedas, they deal mainly with how to become happy in this world. And occasionally within the Vedas, you could find in a section, and it was called an Upanishad. So these verses are in part of the major Vedas, but then they're taken out also as separate works. So where this Isopanisad appears in the Yajur Veda, just prior to that, the preceding Vedic mantra is this invocative Om Purnam Adaha Purnamidam mantra. So it is, you know, the function that it's playing in the Isopanisad, I have no comment on. Why it was selected in that way by Thakur Bhaktivinoda and then by Prabhupada, well, you know, it's kind of, it is appearing in that way in the Veda. And when you look at this introductory invocative mantra, it is a very powerful mantra. And this mantra, you'll see this mantra in many places in India, in newspapers and articles, in yoga schools. It's a very famous mantra. Much more, you know, than probably the Isopanisad. This mantra is known, and this mantra is so. Whether it has, you know, I'm not sure that it has any effect on our study of the Isopanisad, but it is a very wonderful mantra to chant. And a little story about this mantra I can share with you. I was in East Bengal 20 years ago, 15 years ago, preaching in a place called Chittagong. It's Chottagram. It's described in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chottagram. So at that place, there is Ramakrishna Mission. They're oftentimes referred to by Prabhupada in his writings. They were in Calcutta also when Prabhupada grew up. Vivekananda Shami, Ramakrishna Mission, very famous in Bengal. So they had their ashram monastery in Chittagong, and they were organizing. They're impersonalists. They're not devotees of Krishna. You go into their temples, you'll see the Guru is on the altar. There's no merity of Krishna. Krishna is not worshipped. The Guru is worshipped as God. And they had a big festival. Now we were there with our ISKCON's Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. He's from East Bengal, actually. And so when he returns to Bangladesh and preaches there, well, you know, it's a really amazing thing that thousands of people, tens of thousands of people come because he's a world famous Guru. So the Ramakrishna Mission knew that he was in Chittagong. They invited him to open the event. So Maharaj decided to go because people would be there. He could preach. And so about 300 devotees, we all went for the opening and of the Bashant Panchami festival. And there were 15 sannyasis of the Ramakrishna Mission sitting, and a big guru sitting up on a deer skin. And then they invited Maharaj as the Udbodhak, as the opening speaker. This is in Bengali. And then Maharaj spoke. He spoke on this verse, the Isopanisad verse. And when the impersonalist sannyasis heard Maharaj speaking on that verse, they were very happy. Oh, yes, Upanishads. And Maharaj explained the Vaishnava Siddhanta on the basis of this verse. So it's a very wonderful verse. And we're very fortunate to be able to meditate on its meaning as we begin our study of the Sri Isopanishads.
Prabhu, could it be? Prabhu, could it be that this verse is selected because throughout the Isopanisad, Prabhupada really labels the point that God, so the Supreme Person, Supreme Absolute is a person, and he heavily attacks impersonalism throughout Isopanisad. So, I mean, this verse, invocation verse, is very clearly laying the foundation for that.
Thank you. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you for explaining. I haven't yet read the Sri Isopanisad, so that makes sense. So, thank
Good.
you.
Thank you. Shall we carry on a little more? Yeah. Now, Prabhupada makes this comment that we make efforts to utilize the resort. We make efforts to utilize the resources of nature to create a so-called life of sense enjoyment, but the illusory representation of completeness cannot fully satisfy us. So we see the materialistic way of life. We see that we're looking for something. It's a struggle in this world. Manashashtendrayani prakritishtani karshati prakritishtan. In this material energy, it's a struggle. Everything's a struggle. Just to get some peace and quiet is a struggle. You have to put so much effort into everything, and you have to maintain it. Nothing comes free. And, because everyone's handicapped in the same way, we've just kind of accepted it, that's life. But everyone's struggling, and we're to try to build up an environment of complete uninterrupted sense enjoyment that just never evaporates and constantly gets better and better. But it's not available. This doesn't exist here. And the effort that you have to put in, eventually you realize that it's just not worth it. The results that you get back. As Prabhupada, the illusory representation of completeness cannot fully satisfy us. So we'll open this up to comments from the learned assembly. What can we derive from the Isopanisad, which can help us to make our lives more complete? What can we derive from this invocation verse to help make our lives more complete? And if you have any comments on that, we would be happy to hear them.
Well, in our book club, I've been deemed the bad cop because I tend to call people out and force them to speak. So, if people don't start sharing, I'm going to start playing my bad cop role again.
I usually just allow the silence itself to induce people to speak Karuna Shakti. Usually you don't require to add any, just the silence itself. After a while, people can't take it anymore. So just keep them mouth shut and then they'll start speaking. Let's take a comment from Srila Prabhupada, which we'll discuss in this connection. Just like a machine, and there is a small screw. The completeness of that small screw is to fit in the particular place. Then it's got value. If it's out of touch of the machine, it has no value. So we are complete units so long as we are attached to Krishna, otherwise useless. This is Prabhupada's analogy. It's very, very instructive. If you were to take part, like so many machines in front of me, I've got UPS drives, I've got mobile devices, and this. I've got Belkin extensions. Now, if I was to pull something apart, and these screws, and take the little screw out of here, throw it over there, sitting on the bench, it's not used. There's no use for anything. It's just complete. Its only meaning is to be in there. Only meaning of its existence is to be in there. Then it has meaning. Sitting on the shelf has no meaning. So this is a material existence. We can never find that completeness that we're looking for until we're connected to Krishna, because we're meant Rishikena Rishikesh Sheva. We're meant for serving Krishna. We're designed for that Sheva Shukarosh. And when we serve Krishna, we experience the Brahmananda, which doesn't exhaust when the pleasure of the senses exhausts. The connection with Krishna, Ramanand, it gets better and better, chanting the holy name. So this is a nice analogy that Prabhupada's giving us to understand how we can make ourselves more complete by connecting ourselves, satisfying Krishna senses. Basically, that means satisfying Krishna senses, and the mission of Krishna's representative, helping to fulfill the mission of Krishna's representative. And that way you can be attached by acting to please Krishna's senses. You offer things to Krishna, you chant Krishna's name, you dance before Krishna, you bow down to Krishna, or you work in the mission of Krishna's representative. And in that way you feel complete. All services in this world, whether social, political, communal, or international, even interplanetary, will remain incomplete until they are dovetailed with the complete whole. So any thoughts or question or comment on these points?
Prabhu, one of the questions that came up in our discussion yesterday was in the purport, Prabhupada says that the complete arrangement has already been made for our maintenance, and we do not need to over endeavor for our sense enjoyment. And one of the questions was, well, how do we then discern between a lazy person who doesn't want to make any effort, because they're like, well, all the arrangements have been made.
Yeah, well, the person is just lazy if they're doing that and they're not engaged and they're not utilizing the subsequent time they acquire for progressing in spiritual life. But if the person is minimizing their interaction to fulfill the demands of this body, and it would appear that they're lazy, but they're not lazy, they're actually utilizing the extra required time in cultivating self-realization, then they're not lazy, they're intelligent. Just like I often I live in India, and I've lived in India 25 years, and now I have a nice place because we're doing everything from here now. We're not traveling, but I know many of our members, and I visit their homes. They don't have any furniture. They just have straw mats on the floor, and in the winter rugs on the floor. And they never really think about going out and getting a sofa and a table. And it's not that they're just incompetent people and they can't organize furniture. They don't think it's going to really contribute much to the quality of their life, because their life is based around practicing Bhagavad-Gita and temple activity. So, that's it's not something that we have to. This topic also will come up when you're looking in the next verse, which is the text 1, Ishavashamidam Tena Tena Bunchita. One should accept only one's set aside allotment. So it's not that you know, we have to have a life of austerity and self-abnegation. And only, you know, we do things to Krishna and don't do anything for ourselves. No, it's not meant like that. Rather, these things automatically, we lose that. One's life becomes more balanced, and we lose interest in the effort, the energy. People work so hard, and their mind is so absorbed in achieving the temporary things and never even think beyond that. So the sadhaka, or the aspiring transcendentalists, they make the main focus of their life by particularly using the morning hours for spiritual cultivation. But it's not that all day you can do that. You can't sit around all day reading scriptures, a few hours, but in the morning, and then you deal with the world, it's a whole different experience because your mind is absorbed. And again, in the evening, and this is the general balanced way. And then you automatically, you're not really like a materialist, competing with the materialists to try to get ahead. You're satisfied with whatever comes of its own, yadricha lava shantushta, satisfied which comes of its own accord. And you can manage, and that's generally the attitude of a serious sadhaka, that in the material world, it doesn't become an issue whether they're wealthy or they're not, or it doesn't matter so much. They're kind of absorbed on a higher level. And as Krishna explains in Bhagavad-Gita, that he personally takes care of such a advanced transcendentalist, Tesha nitta abhijuktanam, because they are nitta abhijukta, constantly thinking of me and connected to me and making me a priority. Yoga kshemam pahamiham, I arrange everything that they require without them having to spend their energy trying to struggle to get these things.
So,
Does anyone else want to ask a question?
yeah, it's me again. Is that okay?
Yes,
What's
go
that?
ahead.
So most of us are actually university students here, and I'm wondering if it's justified to, well, not go to extreme lengths to like get what we want in terms of our careers, but what if we just enjoy what we're studying, and if we want to go further with that, would it be justified if we're simultaneously being Krishna conscious?
Good. Well, you know, when Prabhupada, our A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, when he first met his guru in Kolkata in 1926 or 24, something like that. It's called Ultadanga Road in Kolkata. We just acquired that property in the last 18 months. We're renovating it, re-establishing its original beauty, that heritage building. So when he first met his guru, he'd that time just been married and had his job, but he was educated in an English college in Kolkata. And his guru said, "You're an educated English. You're educated in English. So my order to you is to instruct the whole world in English language in the Gaudavani, the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaudavani, in English." So in that case, the guru, he very much appreciated the material qualification. So these material qualifications, especially if you have an inclination, and if it's not so difficult for you to get to study, and then you can use that in your serving Sri Hari, because everything can be used, and people that you'll be able to influence people on a level which is tremendously more significant than you would if you weren't educated to that level. So with that purpose, of course, it's a wonderful thing. But if the purpose is just to enjoy senses, then better off, as we'll see when we get to chapter, if you carry on to chapter 9 and 10 of this mantras 9 and 10, you'll say that the education is better off uneducated than educated in the wrong way. So education is good, especially if you have the right. Therefore, you know, in Vedic culture, generally, education is only given to people with good qualities. Education is not randomly given indiscriminately to all the society. People that don't have qualities, advanced qualities like modesty, cleanliness, sense control, they're not given the same education. They're just, because they don't know how to use it, and they just become proud. So education in the proper hands, very, very wonderful thing. Our Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was a highly educated person. So yeah, we encourage all of you who are at college, we encourage you to go on with your studies and then become spokespersons for the message of Godhead throughout humanity. Wouldn't that be an exciting life?
Prabhu, isn't it, even when Prabhupada was present, he encouraged Ravindra Swarup Prabhu to go and get his master's and PhD because he said that it would advance the preaching.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Prabhupada set precedent.
I very much appreciate your answer on education, and it's quite ironic because I'm going into the teaching field, so it very much applies to.
Yeah. So when you're writing your name on the blackboard and you don't make a spelling mistake, that will impress the students a lot. We hope you can do that.
Thanks. Thank you.
So we conclude for this evening.
Prabhu, I have another question, which is something that we were discussing. Is, it says the verse says that the universe, the world that's emanating from from Supreme Personality is perfect and complete and perfectly equipped. But at the same time, we know that there's so much of suffering and so many defects like natural disasters and this pandemic. So how can we consider that perfect?
Yeah, well, in the end, it's perfect, because if you become God conscious and get liberation, it's perfect. And because that opportunity is always there, that's always available. Kali Yuga Nam Rupe Krishna Avatar Nam Hoite Hoi Sharva Jagat Anishta. Anyone under any circumstances, if they take to the chanting of the name of Hari this time, Sharva Jagat Nishta, they can get liberation. So it's perfect in that way. But if you don't have that good fortune, if it hasn't been made known to you, then it's pretty miserable. So we're fortunate, that we've come in contact here with a process that can, make our lives perfect. If we're interested to take it, we can try.
I have a question. This is just in terms of endeavor. So it's like we need to endeavor in Krishna consciousness and life generally. But how do we guard against almost over endeavoring? Like, how do we know that we've sort of reached our quota? Because it's saying that we all sort of have a quota. So how do we kind of differentiate between endeavoring and over endeavoring and knowing that, okay, we've actually reached the quota that's been set aside for us?
Yeah, and you are Radhika. Yes, Radhika.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Radhika Kripa.
Yes, Radhika. Health is a good indication. Health, like if you start getting sick, then you're usually overdoing it. But if your health's okay, and mental health and physical health is okay, then keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Sorry, this is just a continuation. Would that also apply to like endeavoring for material things? Because generally, like, you need the basics to live. So there would be some sort of endeavor to source that. How do you differentiate between endeavoring and sort of greed in a way?
The thing with the material requirements is that they're never satisfied. That's the nature. It's like an unending time consumer. There's always things. So therefore, it's good to have a minimum time that you're spending on spirituality. You make a minimum, like we use the japa, mala. So it's minimum, and then we, like a minimum time of sadhana. We do puja. So you do a minimum time, and then whatever extra you do is fine. But you'll always have. You won't get completely drawn into your materialistic requirements. You just fit them in with whatever time, and you make the regular daily sadhana practice. You make that like a compulsory daily thing. And then that helps you to reduce the time you can spend on material life because you won't have as much time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
So shall we wind up?
Yes, if there are no more
And,
questions.
Pardon?
I said if there are no more questions, then we can round up now.
Seems to me like we've covered things. Thank you
So-
very much, Karuna Shakti.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for making time for us. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us. And I'm sure everyone here has learned a lot and will have a lot more appreciation for the Upanishad as we go forward. And so, Prabhu, and you'll share the presentation with me, and then if we can also share it with other devotees or students who would like it.
We'll share with you that slide on the Vedas.
Yes.
Okay, Hare Krishna. All the best
Hare
with your
Krishna.
study of Krishna conscious literature and the Vedic literature. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.